a startup. I went the startup way and started a HR firm. And I think running that HR firm kind of did a lot to me. It helped me learn how to run a business, but it also helped me see the disparity that exists in our community, right? I mean, the haves and the have-nots. One side, I would meet young people who went to some of the best schools and colleges and had millions of opportunities. And on the other side, I would meet young people who were desperate for a job, but I couldn't offer them anything. And out of that desperation, just seeing that desperation and me personally feeling hopeless and helpless, just in terms of helping them, what I decided along with colleagues and Ajit, who is the other co-founder, is we were working together by then to just open our office to some kids from nearby community and teach them English. So we invited about 15 kids from a nearby community. We had a small office in Frasertown, and we started teaching those 15 kids computers and English. That's how the journey started. We had no intention of getting into social work or being social workers. That's how we started as just a bunch of friends. And that's probably perhaps why we are called You and I, because the story is literally about you and I getting involved and getting our hands dirty.
And I must say that that's a beautiful name, right? You and I, that speaks volumes of what you intend to do as well. And your journey is very similar to that of Bhumi's co-founders as well. Just out of curiosity, why did you pick computers and English?
Well, it just what I learned being a recruiter. One of the key skills people need in India if you want to get a job in a private sector is English, right? English is the most essential skill you need. About 90% of jobs are out of reach if you don't know English. Yeah. So, and a lot of kids I would interact with who would come from government schools or government colleges, they didn't know how to speak English because English was introduced to them in 5th grade, 6th grade. Then it was taught by teachers who themselves have not gone to English medium school. So, and not having this basic skills kind of cut off 90% of jobs, just from even applying, forget about getting a job. So we understood that English is really a low hanging fruit. And if you're able to even teach someone very basic English, you're almost in some scenarios doubling their capacity to earn twice the amount of what they're earning. Let me give you a very simple example. You take someone who works in a, say, supermarket, like I'm talking about Food World sort of a place. Now that person would be earning anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000 rupees based on whichever city he or she is in. Now you take a person like that and teach them very basic conversation English. It may take you a few hours a week and may take you about 6 months to 1 year. But with basic conversational English, that person can move from, say, working from a supermarket to working in a shopping mall, like a Shopper Stop or Lifestyle, where the salaries are about 10,000 to 12,000. That's literally twice the amount, right? And that's the power of English. And if you're able to add English to whatever skills a person has, you're literally doubling their capacity to earn and doubling their just the accessibility of jobs as well. So that it's no brainer at all. They need English, and same goes for computers as well. The minute you are able to make someone tech savvy, there are a lot more jobs accessible to them. So that was the reason. Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure that as you were exposed, or as you started interacting with these children, other needs would have also surfaced, right? So how has your journey changed since the inception of You and I? From teaching computers to English, how has it actually transformed, and what is the impact that you're seeking to create?
Sure. So of course, when we started off, because we were just friends, the simple question we asked is what can we do, just being a common man, right? And English seemed like a good segue, and I still feel like today also English is a great segue if you want to get into relationship, mentor-mentee relationship as well. It's an easy skill to teach. But now as we think as an organization, so we think more holistic and saying, okay, if we want to really reach a kid, what are the different things he or she should be having an access to? And our goal today, as an organization, is that these kids have access to everything possible, and they're able to reach their highest potential. That's a goal we work with, and we try and sort of make our what we do for the kids more holistic and see what all they need. So apart from English, We don't do so much computers right now because computers happens as an add-on skill at some point in the journey once they settle down, once they learn a bit of English. But we also, English is still the first thing we offer them. But apart from English, we sort of also do academic support where whatever subjects they need help with, whether it's maths or science or social studies, we help them with that. And some of the fundamental things we do is a lot of kids we work with also come from very traumatic backgrounds. And as volunteers, when we see kids playing up in a classroom, our immediate reaction could be, "Oh, this kid is spoiled." Yeah. But if you really sort of take time and understand their background, you understand they come from different backgrounds. And one of the key things they need is a bit of counseling, bit of someone who understands if they have any learning disabilities, if they need a bit of counseling, just psychologically. So counseling is something we offer to our kids. We also have sort of a reading program. It's not, we don't call it a library program because we've got levels of books, and we try and map our kids. And reading is really a habit, right? I mean, all of us, none of us would pick up a book and read if somebody had not invested in us and helped us sort of make it a hobby. So we try and sort of make reading a hobby for our kids. And then there are a lot of other things which not all kids get everything, but a combination of things, right from career days to we've got 7 different programs when it comes to life skills. So when we work with a bunch of kids, we see what is the need. It could be that we see that hygiene is a big need with the kids. They like, it could be as simple as in the classroom, and if they go to use the loo, they may not be washing their hands, they may not have cut their nails. So we've got 7 different programs, and we've got a basic assessment that our leaders and managers do to see what is the most important thing for them, or urgent thing, and then we sort of implement that. That could be anywhere from good touch, bad touch to hygiene and healthcare and number of other things. So we kind of try and do a range of things. But if I have to say, hey, what is the most impact you see, just in terms of what we do is it's connecting a volunteer with a student. There's a magic in it, and I think that's a lot of our kids are first generation learners, and they only see you from the other side of the car window. But when they spend time with you, the transformation happens here. They suddenly say, hey, if Vaishnavi could do this, why can't I? And once that switch comes on, the possibilities are just endless for that kid. So that's the biggest transformation we really seek for, and we have seen also time and again with the kids we work with.
Wonderful. Yeah. Sure. So I'm just going to come back to you a little later about what the transformation for the volunteer is. But before that, to help us understand you and I better, could you share some core principles on which the organization has been built?
Great. I'll share 2 very strategic principles that we sort of, when you look at the volunteering space, which are very important. I think one of the things we teach our staff, our leaders, is that people will come for a cause. When you look at the volunteers, right, people will come for a cause, but they'll stay for the community. So when you're in the volunteering space, building a strong community is very critical. Right. Yeah. So there is a lot of emphasis on the kind of culture we build with the volunteers. It's definitely an alternate place for a lot of young people to come. They may have 10 other options, but they're choosing to stay here and give those hours of precious time of their young lives to us and to the kids, because they love the community. They feel that sense of purpose. And they also feel like they've got this community of other people who think like them and are unified just in terms of purpose. So building that community is very important. So we literally drill down into our staff, and let it be our managers, our leaders, they know this very well. And building a community is number one thing that they have to do, as managers. But the flip side of that is we also say that community without a cause is a cancer. So we are very clearly here to change those lives of those kids and to bring about change, whichever community we are part of. If that is not happening, then there's no point to our existence. So those are the 2 sides of running a volunteering program, if you ask me.
Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Satish. Now, UNI has been a fast growing movement, and I would like to understand some key skills or attributes that you look for in young people while recruiting them? Because a lot of whatever you just shared now, be it culture building or be it impacting the child or creating that transformation in their lives, all of that is highly dependent on the kind of people coming into your system. So what are the key attributes that you look for when you conduct your volunteer recruitment drives?
Yeah, I think there are skills and attributes. Both are very critical. Just in terms of skills, the basic things we look for is someone, whatever program they're applying for, which is mainly English, that they have the basic English skills to be able to teach, and the other logistical stuff we definitely look for is it practical for them to volunteer, and just in the space they are in life, what are the commitments do they have? Because the reality with when you're young, right, is you're very ambitious. You want to do a lot. So we help them understand: is it really practical with the other commitments they have in life? Is it a practical decision they're making or an emotional decision they're making? So that's something we really look at. So commitment is probably the number one attribute that you have. So anybody has to take just in terms of ticking the boxes to be able to become a UNI volunteer. We feel like, hey, you do not have. It could be for practical reasons, everyone has that goodwill to volunteer, but it's not practical for everyone. That you actually have the capacity to practically commit to this. Yeah. So one of the main things we tell them right in the beginning, in the first round of interview, is that if you as a volunteer are not going to maintain 80% attendance, we will have to fire you. And we do fire a lot of volunteers. So that is kind of told right in the beginning, and only if somebody can sort of thinks that they can meet that standard, we kind of take the application forward. Some of the basic things you got to look for in your volunteers is they've got to be driven by purpose. They've got to be driven by, they need to have the passion to change. Uh, I think can they do it? Do they have it? Are the two different questions. So the skill and the will, those are two sides of it that you got to look for. Yeah.
So I'm just going to go back to your driven by purpose and the passion to change. It's been about 9 years. 2011 was when you founded the organization. How do you think the culture in volunteering has changed? When you just look back,
Sure.
I'm sure the culture was very different back then. Because I also started as a volunteer, and back in 2007. So why we stepped in was probably had other reasons. Then we had mandatory community service then. But now, I had to get a certificate and to be submitted to college. So reasons could have been very different. So do you see that cultural shift in volunteering now?
I definitely see. I think I'll go back a little more than 9 years, if that's okay. I think number one is, like, if you look at my generation, right? I grew up in a generation where we kind of lived in a survival mode, where roti kapda makan was a big thing. You had to look after yourself, you got to look after your needs. But I think our country has done well. So today's generation, they are blessed. A lot of the parents have done well. They have a couple of houses. They have built a decent life for the kids. So we are not in survival mode today. So, and that's the beautiful space that today's generation is in. And I think, and I must say that today's young people have really capitalized on that. Yeah. They're really driven by purpose, and also it comes with the awareness, right? They're a lot more aware. They see a lot more. They hear a lot more thanks to the technology. So they're aware, and they're willing to put their hand up and say, "Hey, I want to volunteer." Yeah. So that's that definitely has changed over the years. I see a lot more young people have the space and the capacity and the willingness to serve. And they really sort of, when they commit, a lot of them really live up to their commitments. That's a beautiful thing to see.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So now we spoke a little bit about the recruitment part, but once they come into the system, there's a lot that they need to understand, because usually there is some kind of a reaction once I'm exposed to children from the low income group. So there are, in terms of, how do you help your volunteers contribute effectively in getting them to unlearn and learn? And what are some kind of support structures that you provide for them so that they're able to achieve your intended outcomes?
Yeah. I think over the years, one thing that we have sort of seen is how much training is important. Yeah, um, because we are talking about volunteers who've not been, they've not trained, professionally to teach. So just recruiting them and sort of putting them in the centers can be very overwhelming. So I'm put in a class with about 3 kids or 5 kids or 1 kid, whatever it is. Uh, uh, it can be a very overwhelming space for them, and they may feel like I don't have the right tools. Yeah, just because kids are from underprivileged background doesn't mean they are going to sit quietly and listen to you. They're going to be like any other kids, right? They're going to be naughty, they're going to be mischievous. So how do I deal with them? So I think a couple of things that we have done over the years that has really helped us. Number one is we've tied up with one of the largest teacher training companies in the world. It's called Flipping Tool. They've got this amazing tools that really help you sort of build a great culture within the classroom, and they give you tools to sort of really help build a great classroom environment. So we try and teach our volunteers those tools, and that's the centerpiece of how we equip them. So that really empowers them as a teacher to run a good class. That's number one. Number two is also we've got both offline and online training sort of a format. Online training is, offline training is when volunteers start at the beginning of the year. We have a program called Kickstarter. So they go through that. They get basic information about how to volunteer. And during the year, then we've got a refresher program where they get another day of training. But we also, what we do is every month we release an online program that our volunteers can watch and learn a little bit more about how to teach. And we try and take those tools, and every class is supported with a debrief. So our classes are usually 2.5 hours. So 2 hours is a class, and last half an hour is volunteers coming together along with the leaders and debriefing how the class went, what tools can we use. So that really helps volunteer address their immediate needs as well, but also makes them sort of feel like they're learning, they're growing, and they're empowered to teach the kids.
Wonderful. So interestingly, we had one of your volunteers apply to our fellowship. And one thing that this person mentioned was a culture of transparency that you have created at UNI. We found that very interesting because she kept going back to that and saying that, we're very honest and open to each other, and we are encouraged to share feedback. So I am just touching upon a bit of values. What are the values that you have built into the organization, and what do you see your volunteers as youngsters demonstrate, and not just in the space of UNI but also in society?
Yeah, actually, when it comes to values, apart from the values that we sort of try and sort of bring to the table, one of the key exercises we run at every center is we do a simple exercise called social contract, where once a center comes together beginning of the year, it could be a bunch of volunteers and leaders. One of the first things they do is they sit down and say, how are we going to treat each other? So it's a simple exercise they run. How do you want your leaders to treat you? How do you want to be treated by your leaders? Yeah, how are we going to treat our kids? So there are a few questions they ask each other. And then out of that exercise come number of words, right? And open and honest is something you'll see in every social contract. Yeah. And I think the power of doing this exercise is that people own those values, because it's not the values that are just given by the organization, but these are the values that they have sat together and said, hey, this is who we want to be. Yeah. Respect, being open and real, and caring for each other, giving constructive feedback. These are common themes you'll hear no matter what part of the world you are from. And I think doing that really helps, because people own the values, and also sort of take them wherever they go, because that's become part of them. I think that's the thing about social contract.
Great.
I think there are a few questions in the thing. Are we going to take them later?
We'll take it towards the end
Sure.
because some of these might be answered. So,
cool.
Yeah.
So, Mohammed, if you can be a little patient with me, I'll answer your question. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Satish. Volunteering has been a launchpad for most of us in taking the next step in the ed sector or the development sector itself. So, do you have any volunteer turned full-time employees at UNI? If so, what percentage of that, of your employees are volunteer turned employees? And
Right.
how has this progression been favorable as against someone who joins the organization with very little prior experience?
Sure. Great. Couple of things. Number one is, I think 50% of my present team who runs the education program are managers are all who started as volunteers, then have become leaders, and now have become managers. Yeah. So I think I may be getting the numbers a bit mixed up, but at least I think 50% of them, and from across the country as well. So I've got 3 or 4 joined from Chennai, Mumbai, Coimbatore, of course, Bangalore. So, and that number kind of keeps increasing every year. Um, I think I'll speak from both sides, from the organization side and for the people who have become managers. I think that for them it's been a great journey, because a lot of them, when they started volunteering, they probably didn't imagine that they will end up getting into social sector. But that journey has been beautiful to see people who just started as volunteers and then kind of taking those commitments one step at a time, and growing in the organization. Yeah.
Right.
So there was a clear line of sight for them, and just doing it for 2-3 years, it solidified their conviction to saying, hey, this is the place I want to be in, and I think I belong here. Yeah. And so they have kind of walked into a manager space already having done it for 2-3 years, with that confidence and that conviction. Both are very important, right? And that's very important for any young professional, no matter what industry you're getting into. But having done this for 2-3 years, when they come in, they know their skills, they've got the skill set, they've got the conviction, they've got the confidence. Yeah. So that's from their side. And for us, it's beautiful because we've got this great pool of leaders who are totally exceptional, and they have been in the system for 2-3 years. So they understand the work culture, they understand what skills it requires. So as they grow with the organization, when they come in, it's just a cakewalk for us.
Right.
Yeah. So and that's been a beautiful journey for us to see every year getting more and more applications from our volunteer base. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure the transition is also quite organic and easy, right? When they move from the role of a volunteer to a
Absolutely.
full-time employee. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Can you briefly share about UNI Teach and UNI Care programs, and how each of these programs engages volunteers?
Sure. So the volunteering is mostly associated with UNI Teach. We do not have volunteers for UNI Care, but I'll share a bit about both. So UNI Teach is an after-school program, and both these programs kind of started organically when I was still a volunteer, and there was no UNI, and we kind of stuck with both the programs. So UNI Teach is an after-school program, just the way I opened my office and invited 15 kids to sort of come and learn. That has kept sort of increasing. Today we've got about 56 learning centers across 20 cities, and we teach close to about 2,000 kids. And all the teaching is done by the volunteers. So what the staff do is they are just the facilitators. They ensure there's a right ecosystem. They ensure the right training is there. All the resources are there, and the volunteers sort of really run the show. So you as a volunteer, when you join, you join as a teacher volunteer. You're teaching. Your commitment is about 2.5 hours a week. When you're placed into a specific center, and you're assigned up to 3 kids, and you teach those 3 kids for a span of 9 months. And after 9 months, if you want to continue, you can reapply, or you're free to go. So that really helps volunteer. They don't feel like, oh, I'm starting the process, but what's the end of it? They know very clearly I'm doing it for 1 year. After that, if my life still allows me, I would do it. Otherwise, I can move on. So that gives them a freedom to happily sign in and really fulfill this. And once they are in the system for a year or so, some of them become leaders, and they really manage the show on the ground. And we do have exceptional leaders across India who literally run the show for us. I think 90% of the work we do is done by them as far as Teach is concerned. We as staff mostly kind of facilitate and help the help the managers sort of run the show. Yeah, leaders kind of run the show. Now, apart from that, we also run a program called UNI Care. UNI Care, basically, we work with the homes run by the state government. And these homes exist across India. What we try and do in these homes is we go and sort of build the capacity, because a lot of just like your government schools and private schools, you know the gap, right? Same way, the state homes also have a gap. They may need more staff. They may need um, specialists coming and working. So we work with about 5 homes right now. We work with a boys home with special needs, and a men's home where men are with special needs, women are with special needs, women who've been rescued from bonded labor, commercial sex, toddlers who've been abandoned. So there are different homes. So we kind of go and work with them. Yeah. So we run kind of special schools inside these homes for these kids, because these kids are not allowed to go in. Not that they're not allowed to, but they can't go outside. We've got full-time physiotherapists, special needs teachers working with them. So all sorts of professionals working with these kids and women and men to take care of them. Yeah, so vision there is really to see how we can support and enhance the institutional care in India.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's wonderful. That really touched my heart, and that also actually, I'm going to take a sub question there, because you mentioned about government, these being government homes. So at UNI, do you envision working at systemic level, like working with the government, be it policy or education itself? What are your plans? I mean, because when it is at the system, it is also at scale. And then, of course, it's both a plus and a challenge. It can be a challenge as well. So what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think ideally we would want to, because as you said, when you work with the system at a policy level, you're also talking about scale. So ideally we want to. It's not been our expertise. It's not been an area where we are good at. So we've not sort of ventured into that space in a large way. But of course, we do want to. We want to work with the system. That's very much part of our vision, and we want to join hands with the system, with other partners, and do our bit. Yeah, so that's definitely part of the vision.
Right. Great. So coming back to your volunteers, what do you envision for them from the experience they gain at UNI? What role do you see them playing in society and for themselves?
Great. Yeah, that's a great question, because when I first started UNI, I mean, the focus was how do we help the kids, and how do we help the kids to reach their fullest potential. But if you ask me what is the vision of the program today, it's not just helping the kids reach their highest potential, but it's also helping the volunteers get to their highest potential. Because we've seen the impact volunteering can have on young people. Any volunteers, but especially young people. A lot of our volunteers are college students, and when they come in, they have all the passion, and they need the direction, and they want to grow. And I think we have hundreds and hundreds, and I'm sure it's not different for Bhumi and all the others who are in volunteer space. Almost every volunteer who stayed and has done a year or so work would vouch that it has been transformational in their lives. Yeah, and I think it's a kind of a therapy also, if you ask me, because it gives everybody a sense of purpose, right, when you're involved. And we all need that sense of purpose. We all want to belong to a place where we are able to contribute for something that's larger than us. And once we tap into that potential and that passion, right, there is no end. Because I think there's a very thin line between, hey, what can I do as an individual, to I can do something. And again, it's just a matter of that switch coming on. And once that happens, wherever they are, whether they're in corporate world, not all of us need to get into social sector, definitely. Where they're in corporate world, they're in civil service, wherever they are going to be change makers. There's no two ways about it. And we've seen that, we've seen that with volunteers who volunteered with us and gone on to do vast number of different things. But wherever they are, they always are involved, are always very thoughtful about their community around them. So, and that's one side of it, and the skills they build. Yeah. So they are all going to be great parents at the same time.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing that thought. But I'm going to shift the lens a bit in terms of understanding how the career path of some of your volunteers have shifted or altered. So, would you be able to share some anecdotes of probably some volunteers who have come on board even at UNI, or have gone on to pursue higher education in, say,
Mhm.
education or policy, or are working with other like-minded non-profits now? So
So
some a few anecdotes.
yeah, yeah. I think number of them, as you said, somebody applied for fellowship at Bhumi. We have number of them applying to sort of get into a fellowship with Teach for India and number of other charities. We have people working right from Tata Trust to various other things,
Mm.
charities. But I think at a larger scale also, I have seen people sort of who were doing X, but they kind of completely turned around and started doing something else because they found passion, In
Mm.
fact, right from our first year, I remember this girl called Shikha who was a media student and was working for an ad agency. And then she started volunteering in this home for boys with special needs. And after doing that for a year or so, she decided that, hey, that's what she wanted to do with her life. And
Mm.
now she kind of moved away from working for media to going and getting a degree in special needs education and then
Wow.
becoming a special needs teacher. So you
Mm.
have number of those examples.
Mm.
There's another girl called Shreya who volunteered with us and then gone on to do psychology and just working with the kids now. So
Mm.
I can tell you story after story, but I think a lot of people find their passion when they
Mm.
volunteer.
Mm.
And the beautiful thing as going back is today's generation has the space. They don't need to
Mm.
be stuck with a job
True.
or a profession which doesn't connect at that level,
Right.
because you got to be doing something that you're good at, something you love, and something that somebody is willing to pay you money for. It kind
True.
of needs to tick all those boxes.
Yeah.
And my advice to young people nowadays is that you have the space, take that little
Mm.
bit of risk and find that. You don't need to stick to something that you're unhappy with.
True.
Yeah.
Find your ikigai. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for sharing that. Now, for today's youth who are active volunteers, what are some of the ways in which they can play a greater role in the social sector?
Great. I think as young people, we are very powerful, right? And I think we don't realize that, especially when you're young, you don't realize that. I think uh, someone who said that a young person today, or as a citizen today, you're more powerful than the most powerful man in the world, like the US president, uh, 26 years ago, because of the
Mm.
technology you have
Yeah.
and because of that smartphone you have in your hands.
Mm.
And with that power, what we do with that power is really up to us. Yeah,
Mm.
I think the greater impact you can have, not just on social sector but on your community, is uh, to innovate, especially in a time like this. All of us have great ideas, and
Mm.
young people have a lot of great ideas, but
Mm.
very few act on it or have the audacity to act on it. So
Mm.
I think if you're willing to take a bit of risk and venture
Mm.
out, and you're seeing a lot of that, right? I mean, a lot of
Mm.
young entrepreneurs who are driving projects and products that are not just innovative but will have an impact on the community.
Right.
Let it be climate change to I was chatting with this girl who has invented this basically like a tablet, but kind of
Mm.
works with the solar power, and she invented that when
Ah.
she was 12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have so much at your fingertips right now. What do you
Mm.
do with it is really up to you. So I
Mm.
think there are a lot of avenues if you really want to contribute and make an impact.
Right. Great. So before we take questions from the participants here, I'm very tempted to ask, what would life be if you hadn't lost your work permit?
I think life would have been been settled in the UK, uh, living in a nice countryside, having a job, that nice cozy job that I would have probably loved, and that would have been life.
Right.
But one thing I can't deny is that I would have been probably miserable because uh, it's going through those trials of running a business and then finding my passion. Like I would not trade what I do today for anything.
Right.
Yeah. So I would have been a miserable old man by now. So
Thank you so much for answering that, Satish. So we're going to take questions from the audience. Nanda Sharma is asking, how can we involve our children in a drive to make aware the entire generation about the kind of crisis, so that we will not have to face that in coming times? So sensitizing children is what I'm going to take away from that question. How do you think you can sensitize children, particularly
mm,
about what is going on right now? Anything that you're doing, or anything
I
that
think,
you think we should be doing?
yeah, I think great way to sensitize our children is to get them involved. Yeah, our kids are never going to be sensitized if they're on the other side of the car window, living inside the apartment. We need to take them out. We need to give them opportunities to volunteer, no matter how young they are. Um, get them to hang out with kids from lower income communities, and remove those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are able to show them that side of the world and create a world like that,
Mm.
that sensitivity will come, I think.
Right.
I have worked with kids. One of my volunteers, it's many years ago, her name is Simran.
Mm.
She started volunteering with us when she was like 15 years old,
Wow.
and she was with us for 5 6 years,
Mm.
uh, and she's doing her masters right now. But she
Mm.
always comes back, right? And
Mm.
those values she incorporated
Mm.
while volunteering has not gone away. Yeah,
Wonderful.
and the reason I'm taking her name is because I remember, and she wasn't from India.
Mm.
She's an NRI, but they moved to India, and the first
Mm.
month of moving, I remember the day when she and her mother walked into the office, and I
Mm.
remember that mother bringing her daughter, young daughter, first time in India. But mother had the presence of mind to do that, and kind of really transformed how Simran looks at the world today, and
Mm.
how sensitive she is to the
Right.
world around her. So
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that. Next question is, as a youth, what can one do to contribute more for the education equality in India?
hmm. I think the simplest thing we can do is we to give away what we have received, because it's free to give away. Yeah, we simple skill like English that we take for granted,
Mm.
but can literally change someone's life.
Mm.
Yeah, so we have these skills, basic skills that we take for granted. But if you are able to transfer those, I
Mm.
think that's something you'll tilt the scale a little bit.
Mm.
So I think that's definitely a starting point.
Yeah, great. That's true. Um, Hi, Satish. Tell us, why do you see education ecosystem evolving? I'm sorry. How do you see education ecosystem evolving or changing after this global crisis?
Hmm. That's $1 million question, guys. Uh, I think, well, there are two sides to it, right? I think one is we are all getting too comfortable with uh, doing everything online, but that's going to come with pros and cons. If we get too attached to just being online, our kids will suffer because it comes with its side effects, especially when it comes to their social skills.
Mm.
Yeah, because what school does is not just education; it
Mm.
works on you as a person, right?
Mm.
Um, so I think the upside is going to be we'll use a lot more technology and we'll get used to it. And I think a lot of us also right now pushing that just sort of a barrier and saying how can our kids, the kids we work with, can have access to more technology. And I think
Mm.
a lot more people will start investing in that. So I
Mm.
think that's a great thing because kids will have access to technology. But the other side is if we don't go back to some of the basics that we know are very critical to children, then we will also may
Yeah.
pay a price for it 10 years from
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
there are two sides to it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought in technology because that's gonna, it ties in with the next question from Jay Seelan. It says, is this a right time to propose the idea of e-learning to children? Will it create a digital divide, or will it be the other way
I think it will create a digital divide. If I'm going to be honest about it, I think there is already a digital divide. I think what this crisis has done is just made it obvious, right?
Mm.
Everything that we take for granted that we have,
Mm.
uh, the other side doesn't have it. You're just seeing that this crisis didn't create the problem; it just
Mm.
exposed the problem that's already exist.
Right.
So it will create a digital divide. Uh, but thankfully, we have a lot of organizations like Bhumi working towards it to bring it down.
Mm.
And I think if there's any time to tackle problems like this is the time, guys. I mean, this is the
Mm.
time we are all comfortable and we are in a space where we can do something for someone else.
Right.
So hopefully we are in a position to tackle it also.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering and taking all those questions, Satish. One last question is from Mohammed about his experience of UNI, and I
Sure.
believe it's fundraising for the children. So maybe
Yeah.
you can either give us an email ID on which we can contact you, or take it live now.
I can take it live. I think since we talked about honesty and openness being our value, I think I owe an answer to Ajmal, right? If I'm reading it right.
Mohammed,
Ajmal,
yeah.
yeah. Ajmal, number one thing is my sincere apologies if you had bad experience with you and I. Whatever the reasons where you shouldn't have had a bad experience. So, and I honestly, with all my heart, I want to apologize for the bad experience you had in terms of fundraising. Um, I think what I can tell you, being transparent at UNI, number one is we believe in a principle where we say, hey, all of us need to volunteer, and all of us also need to contribute or raise funds. Yeah, and Ajmal, let me tell you my story. I in fact was sharing this with some of my staff today. I started UNI at the peak of a crisis like this. Today we are looking at jobs being lost, and people are looking everywhere, and it's a great time for everyone to get into their survival and say, what about my own needs? I'll have to look after my needs. Yeah. uh, I started UNI in the middle of crisis after the 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 recession that we went through between 2007 and 10. It was middle of 2010, and I was a businessman, right? And my business was losing money like crazy. In midst of that, me and Ajit, the other co-founder, sat and decided that we want to start a charity called UNI. Yeah, and we started with a whole heart, knowing that this is our passion, and this is what we wanted to do. And and we were all volunteers, and we were already volunteering, but we felt that we needed to do take big steps if we wanted to create an impact. And we hired our first employee. Her name is Suchi, and Suchi came on board. And in midst of crisis, when my company was losing money, I put my hand up and said, "Hey, I will fund that salary from the business that's already losing money. I'll fund that salary." Yeah. So I honestly believe, Ajmal, that it's on each one of us that we don't just volunteer, but we also say, "Hey, I want to put my hands where my heart is, and I want to raise funds also." Today, UNI's one of biggest strengths is that our program is self-sustaining because our volunteers and leaders say, "Hey, we want to raise funds." Um, but having said that, one of the things we do with all our volunteers is we do not go to our volunteers throughout the year saying, "Hey, please raise funds for this, or do a bake sale, or do this, do that." Our commitment is we only run one fundraising campaign with our volunteers in a year. Yeah. We also make it very clear that it's not a compulsory thing for a volunteer to raise funds. And if you take, though we run very big fundraising campaigns, out of 100% volunteers, probably about 60 to 70% raise money.
Mm.
Yeah. So organizational level, that's how we look at things, and that's how it is. We encourage all our volunteers to say, "Hey, you're volunteering, but also let's raise funds because we want our program to continue even after us and be financially viable to run it for years to come, and we are able to support children, and we are not doing hand to mouth saying, hey, we can run this program this month, but next month we don't know what's going to happen." Yeah.
Mm.
And we see it as right from me to every volunteer, we say, let's raise funds. And I raise funds today also. My son, who's a 5-year-old, raises funds for the kids we work with. And I give away part of my running a business. Every opportunity we get, I give away money. And I'm saying all this not to boast it because of the question Ajmal has asked me. So that's the kind of mentality we have, Ajmal, at UNI. We believe that we need to put our hands where our heart is. But having said all that, if you had a bad experience with the leader, just in terms of raising funds, I sincerely want to apologize to you for that. Yeah, you can get in touch with me if you want to talk more, and if you have suggestions of how we can do it in a better way. Yeah, my sincere apologies.
Thank you so much, Satish. And we see great value because we also have heard a lot about the amazing work that your volunteers do in terms of raising the funds. Because it takes a lot of guts to say that, I need money for my cause. For them to go out, and Keto has been sharing the incredible stories of your volunteers. So I'm sure that their effort is really being put to great use on ground as well. Thank you so much for taking that question. There's one last question that's coming from Bhupalan about the language itself, right? How can it double the income? So I know that you took that already, but maybe you can just talk about, particularly he's talking about the rural-urban divide and how cost of living is much higher in the cities. So if it means that a language is going to enable them to earn double, he's likely to be in the city, which also means that his cost of living is going to be quite high. So how does that work is his question. He says that he's calling it a little chatter about English in his head. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Number one is, of course, understand the it's not a statement that I'm making it an umbrella. It's not an umbrella statement saying, hey, everybody will double their salaries if they learn English. It's not coming from that place. Number one thing is the program we run is in cities. Yeah, because majority of my volunteers are college students, and we run programs in cities where there are colleges. Yeah, so we are mostly reaching kids who are already in the city. Yeah, so from that point of view, if you're already in the city, your cost of living is already high. Uh, but you look at the job market. My explanation is very simple. You look at the job market in a city. I'm not comparing rural and urban, but talking about the urban city, you look at the job market. If you private sector especially, if you don't have English, about 90% of those jobs are not accessible. I'm just talking from that point of view. I'm not saying that everybody should learn English. I'm not coming from that point of view, but the kids we work with, I know that if they learn English, it will increase their employability, and it will increase their income as well. But that's just one side of it. English is not the only thing. Education is also. Statistics say that with every year of schooling, 10% of your income goes up. So our intention is to keep kids in the school. Yeah, as if you're able to make sure kids stay in the school, their future income definitely goes up. So there are a lot more. It's a complex question, right? So you shouldn't simplify it and say if you learn English, your salaries are going to be double. But we are explaining the importance of English. Correct. But English is not an answer to all problems. I do understand.
Right. Thank you, Satish. Thanks a lot. Nanda, we've already answered your question. Satish did talk about sensitizing children, getting them involved through volunteering, in fact, and how powerful volunteering can be when they start young. Yeah, thank you, Bhupalan. We are happy that Satish also answered that question. So with that, we're going to call it a wrap. Satish, thank you so much for joining us online, sharing your experiences of setting up you and I as a wonderful organization with great values, and how you are creating socially conscious youngsters and bringing them into the ed space itself. Okay, sorry. He's given in one more question, Nanda. How can you involve student community in your drive? We'll close with that, and of course, any closing thoughts from your end, Satish.
Can you repeat the question for me?
How can you involve student community in your volunteering? Is what he's asking, I think. So maybe you can briefly talk about your recruitment activities in colleges. Maybe how do you reach out to your student community?
Yeah, so I think how do we involve young people is two ways. One is we work with different colleges. So we go in and run workshops in colleges and give very clear, specific options for young people to volunteer. We also run an online campaign through which young people apply online, and then we kind of have a recruitment process to get them in. It's a very seamless process. If you log on to our website, you'll see you can pick which city, which location, what subject, what day. So you to pick from, so that you're very clear in terms of what you're applying for. And then once you come in, we sort of we have orientation and training, bit of conditioning before you get into the classroom.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
You wanted me to close with something.
Any closing thoughts? You did share some advice for the youth of today. So yeah,
Sure.
any closing thoughts?
I think my closing thoughts are just looking at the chat and people. I think people who are at least live today with us looks like they are very socially conscious. Number one, they're socially aware and very passionate about also. Um, so first of all, I think those are the big things. If you want to sort of, that's where the needle moves, right? You want people to get passionate, people to be thinking and asking questions. So it's really good to see some really deep questions coming from there. So well done, guys. I think you have your basics in place. I think if you want to take this journey, you're going to go places. I think India is a place where there is huge need. I think there is enough space for all of us to join hands and do our bit. So I'm excited to see how all of us will be doing in 10 years from now in this space, right? So thank you for being socially aware. Thank you for thinking about these things. And I want to wish you all the best as you think about applying to Bhumi for fellowship, as you look at other opportunities. Explore different organizations, do it differently, but we may have different ways, but the objective is same. The reason why we are here is same, and this is what connects Bhumi and you and I also. And we are all one in this cause. And I hope you all will join this cause and do it with us. And we look forward to brighter India because we need each one of you here to be part of it. Yeah. So thank you for opening your minds and hearts to this causes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Satish. Wish you the very best, and we look forward to hearing more from you and I and the great stories that your volunteers are doing on the ground. You're welcome to drop off because I'm just going to summarize a little more about the fellowship. Thanks
Sure.
a lot, Satish. Have a great evening.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Pleasure talking to you guys. Bye.
So I'm just going to drop in the link to apply to Bhumi Fellowship. It's a 2-year teaching fellowship. So you will be placed in a low income school here in Chennai. You will be required to teach 12 hours, 12 to 15 hours in a week, English and mathematics, while working alongside with the teachers in improving their capacity, in building their capacities in delivering lesson plans and how do they really work in a classroom, while also working with the school leaders in improving their leadership skills. So further details on fellowship.bhumi.ngo. We invite you to have a look at the website. If you have any questions, please feel free to write to us. And we would also urge you to apply because there is a huge need, and all that we have been exploring through these webinars is the great need for youngsters like you to come on board. So we invite you to take the time to apply to Bhumi Fellowship. Thank you very much for joining us. We will be back sometime next week with one other speaker to share about their journey in volunteering in the education space and how each one of us can be the change. Thank you very much. Good night.